Welcome to Agora Nexus with Atabai, where knowledge and awareness converge. Wisdom begins with curiosity. The unexamined life is not worth living.
We've all been there, haven't we? Just staring at the ceiling, maybe it's 2 a.m., your mind is just racing.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
maybe you technically got the hours, but you wake up feeling, I don't know, like you wrestled a bear instead of slept.
Yeah, totally exhausted. Sleep's supposed to be this fundamental health thing, but for so many people, it's just a constant battle.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the data backs that up, right?
Yeah.
It's not just us feeling this way.
No, not at all. One of the sources we looked at, that sleep myth study, actually points out that about a third of U.S. adults say they get less than the recommended 7 hours. It's a huge issue.
Wow, a third. That's significant. And, there's so much information flying around, different advice, quick fixes. It's easy to get completely lost.
Totally overwhelming.
So for this deep dive, we wanted to keep it really practical. We took this pile of sources, research papers, articles, even notes from places like Reddit threads, and our mission is to pull out the stuff that actually works. Applicable techniques.
Things you can actually do.
Exactly. Actionable steps to improve sleep quality, sleep duration, especially focusing on, anyone over 14 or so. Let's try and cut through that noise.
Okay, let's do it. And the sources give us a really clear place to start. It's something that came up again and again. Consistency.
Right. That was everywhere. Sleep Foundation articles,
Yeah.
Reddit users, they all hammered home this idea of a regular bedtime and a regular wake-up time.
And here's the kicker they all stressed.
Let me guess, sticking to it.
You got it. Sticking to it, even on weekends.
The weekends.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the toughest part for a lot of us, me included. Why is that weekend consistency so important?
Well, think of it like training your brain. Your body runs on this internal clock, your circadian rhythm. It tells you when to feel tired, when to feel alert.
Right.
A consistent schedule helps set that clock, keeps it running smoothly. But when you bounce around late night Saturday, sleeping in Sunday, it throws the whole system off.
It's like giving yourself jet lag without even traveling. Right, they call that social jet lag, don't
Yeah.
they? So it's not just about the number of hours, but the rhythm.
Precisely. And building on that rhythm, the sources talked a lot about having a bedtime routine.
Yeah, that sequence of activities before bed.
Exactly. The Sleep Foundation suggests something like 30 to 60 minutes of consistent calming activities before you plan to sleep. It's another signal to your brain like, okay, time to wind down.
But let's be honest, changing habits is hard. If you're used to, say, scrolling on your phone right up until you close your eyes.
Doom scrolling, yeah. It's a tough habit to break.
Totally. Switching to, I don't know, gentle stretching or reading, it doesn't happen overnight.
I liked that advice from Dr. David Rosen in one of the Sleep Foundation pieces.
Oh, yeah, that was great. He emphasized needing a realistic plan and, crucially, building in forgiveness for slip-ups. Because they will happen.
Right, don't beat yourself up.
Exactly. And he also said, don't try to change everything at once. Just pick one or two small things to start with. Trying a massive overhaul is usually just too much. Leads to
Yeah.
giving up. Okay, that feels more manageable. Small steps. Self-compassion. So consistency, building a routine. What about the specific things the sources warned us not to do before bed? The big don'ts.
Number one, by a long shot, across almost all sources, screens and bright lights. This is the biggest hurdle for most people.
It seems non-negotiable if you're serious, yeah.
Yeah.
But why are screens in bed specifically so bad?
Well, multiple reasons came up. That Frontiers Journal study looked at young adults and found a really clear link between using screens after getting into bed and more insomnia symptoms, less sleep overall.
And wasn't there a pretty shocking statistic tied to that?
Yes, an hour of screen use after you're already in bed was linked to a 59% increased risk of insomnia.
59%. Wow, just from an hour.
It's huge. And the why is layered. First, obviously, it just eats into your potential sleep time.
Right.
Second, the stuff you're looking at can be stimulating, keeps your brain whirring. Third, and this is key, the bright light itself, especially that blue light.
The blue light. Hear about that all the time.
Yeah, it actively suppresses melatonin. That's the hormone telling your body it's time to sleep. So less melatonin, less sleepy.
And the notifications too, right? Just popping up and pulling you back in.
Exactly. Constant little interruptions. So the advice was unanimous. Avoid bright lights. Avoid electronics for a decent chunk of time before bed. Some Reddit folks even suggested taking the phone out of the bedroom entirely.
That's drastic, but maybe effective. What else besides screens?
Heavy meals and Alcohol close to bedtime were also major warnings.
Okay, heavy meals make sense. Indigestion, reflux,
Yeah.
definitely not sleep-friendly.
Hmm.
But alcohol, isn't there that common idea that a drink helps you unwind, helps you sleep?
Ah, yes, the nightcap myth. The sleep myth study flagged this as highly false and really important for public health.
Highly false. But it makes you drowsy.
It can make you drowsy initially, yeah. It might help you fall asleep faster. But, and this is the crucial bit the experts agree, it seriously messes up the second half of your night's sleep.
How so?
It fragments your sleep, makes it less restful, and it delays and reduces REM sleep, which you need for, processing emotions, memory consolidation.
So the quality of sleep plummets, even if you nod off quickly.
Precisely. It's a net negative for sleep health. So ditch the late night feasts and probably the nightcap too. Oh, and one more simple one from the Sleep Foundation.
What's that?
Just watch how much you drink of anything right before bed to avoid those middle-of-the-night bathroom trips interrupting things.
Simple, practical.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've cleared out the disruptors. What about the positive things? What do the sources suggest we add to that wind-down routine?
Well, if you are genuinely hungry, don't just suffer. The Sleep Foundation said a light snack is okay.
Any specific suggestions?
Yeah, they actually listed some things potentially linked to better sleep. Cherries, grapes, kiwi, maybe some rice, nuts, things like that. Light stuff.
Interesting. And maybe pair it with a drink.
A calming one. Non-caffeinated herbal teas were mentioned. Think chamomile, lavender, classic relaxers.
Right. Reading also came up a lot, didn't it? A physical book, not a screen.
Yes, Sleep Foundation and Reddit users both recommended that. Good way to detach.
What about journaling?
That was mentioned too as a way to kind of dump your thoughts, especially worries, before trying to sleep. And there was this one fascinating study finding.
Go on.
Just spending 5 minutes writing a quick to-do list for the next day actually helped people fall asleep faster.
Really? Just writing down tasks. That's surprising.
Yeah. The idea seems to be that getting it out of your head and onto paper stops your brain from chewing on it when you're trying to switch off, quiets the mental chatter.
I might try that. What about the environment itself? The bedroom?
Big emphasis on making it a sleep sanctuary. Use it mainly for sleep and intimacy. Train your brain to associate that room with rest, not with work emails or stressful thoughts.
Makes sense. That sleep myths source also mentioned the cool room idea, right? Though the experts didn't all agree it was definitively better.
Yeah. Exactly, the ratings varied. So it's a common belief, might work for many, but maybe not a universal law. But linking back to the light issue, several Reddit users mentioned consciously lowering lights in the evening, using warmer filters on devices if they had to use them, reinforcing that avoid bright light thing.
Got it. So building that relaxing atmosphere, you mentioned calming activities. One specific technique highlighted was the body scan.
Yes, this came up as a specific mindfulness practice really geared towards sleep preparation.
Okay, what exactly is a body scan? How does it help with a racing mind?
So one of the sources laid it out nicely. The main goal is releasing physical tension you might not even realize you're holding and quieting that mental chatter. It does this by systematically guiding your attention through your body.
So you're not trying to force your mind blank, but redirect it.
Exactly. You're shifting the focus. Usually it's a guided meditation. You can find recordings or scripts. It walks you through noticing physical sensations part by part, maybe starting at your toes, moving up.
Noticing what kinds of sensations?
Anything, really. Warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure, maybe even numbness. The key is just observing whatever's there with curiosity without judging it or trying to change it.
And what happens when inevitably your mind wanders off to your worries or your to-do list?
That's expected. The instruction is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Just notice the thought, maybe picture it like a cloud floating by, don't get hooked, and gently guide your attention back to the body part you were focusing on.
Gently redirect.
Yeah. And the source specifically says it's totally okay if you drift off to sleep during the practice. That's kind of the point for many people.
So it's less about achieving perfect focus and more about gently pulling your mind away from the stuff keeping you awake.
You got it. And there's research behind it. Regular body scan practice is linked to better well-being, less stress reactivity, less depression, and importantly, improved sleep quality.
And why does it work? Just the focus shift.
That seems to be the main mechanism. Your mind can generally only focus on one thing at a time. By deliberately focusing on physical sensations, you draw attention away from those racing thoughts. It typically takes about, say, 15 minutes.
Sounds like a really practical tool to add. Okay, shifting gears slightly, you mentioned that sleep myth study earlier. I think we need to tackle some of those common false beliefs directly. Because, like the source said, believing them can actually make your sleep worse.
Definitely. Let's hit some of the big ones, the ones experts rated as highly false and having significant public health impact. First, your brain and body can learn to function just as well with less sleep.
Oh, yeah, you hear people boast about that sometimes. I only need 5 hours. I've trained myself.
Right, but the science says highly false, high public health significance. The evidence is just overwhelming. Performance drops consistently with less sleep. And even if you feel like you've adapted, there are serious long-term health risks: cardiovascular, metabolic, cognitive. Your body and brain are paying a price even if you don't feel it acutely every day.
So you can't just tough it out long-term without consequences. Okay, myth 2. Many adults need only 5 or less hours of sleep for general health.
Also, highly false, high public health significance. The expert consensus, like from the Cleveland Clinic and others, is clear. Adults generally need 7 to 9 hours. 5 hours is just not enough for most people to function optimally or stay healthy.
Okay, what about this one? Lying in bed with your eyes closed is almost as good as sleeping. If you're struggling, maybe just resting quietly is sufficient.
Nope. Highly false, high public health significance again. Think of it like this. Lying awake is like having your car idling. Sleep is when the car goes into the shop for essential maintenance and repairs.
Ah, good analogy.
Your brain activity, your body's repair processes, they are fundamentally different during sleep. You're getting crucial restoration during sleep that you simply don't get from just lying still awake.
Okay, not just off time, it's repair time. Got it. Myth 4. If you have difficulty falling asleep, it's best to stay in bed and try to fall back to sleep.
Yeah.
This feels like the intuitive thing to do.
It does feel intuitive, but highly false, moderate public health significance. The evidence-based recommendation is actually part of stimulus control therapy.
Stimulus control, what's that?
Basically, if you're in bed for, say, 20 minutes or so and you're just not falling asleep, the advice is to get out of bed.
Get out? Really?
Yeah, go to another room, do something quiet, relaxing reading, maybe some light stretching, but importantly, avoid bright light and screens. Only go back to bed when you actually feel sleepy again.
Why does that work?
Staying in bed, tossing and turning, teaches your brain to associate your bed with frustration and wakefulness. Getting out breaks that association and helps relink your bed with sleepiness.
Huh. Counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you explain it that way. Reassociating the bed with sleep. Okay, final big myth. In terms of your health, it does not matter what time of day you sleep.
Highly false, high public health significance. This is super relevant for shift workers. Loads of research shows that sleeping against your natural body clock, that circadian misalignment, is linked to higher risks for all sorts of health issues: heart problems, diabetes, mood disorders.
So your body really cares when you sleep, not just how long. Okay. This study also mentioned some other beliefs that weren't quite as definitively false, right? Like napping.
Yeah, like napping in the afternoon is a good way to get adequate sleep if you have trouble at night. That was rated moderately false. For some people, naps are fine, even helpful, but for people with insomnia, afternoon naps can sometimes make it even harder to fall asleep at night, creating a vicious cycle.
So it really depends on the person, which highlights that sleep advice isn't always black and white.
Exactly. And speaking of other factors, the sources brought up a few more influences.
Like exercise. The Sleep Foundation said regular activity helps sleep quality. But what about exercising close to bed? That myth study had something interesting there.
Right. The belief exercising within 4 hours of bedtime will disturb your sleep was not rated as highly false by the experts.
Meaning
The evidence is probably mixed, or it depends on the person, the type of exercise. Some studies actually show no negative impact from evening workouts. So while the common advice is often to avoid it, it might be perfectly fine for some individuals.
good to know. We also saw a lot of practical, real-world tips bubbling up from the Reddit discussions, especially for people trying to wake up earlier.
Yes, and the number one tip, linking back to our first point, was always waking up early starts with going to bed early, consistently. You can't cheat sleep math.
The simple truth. But they had some clever hacks, too.
Oh yeah, like putting your alarm clock across the room so you physically have to get out of bed to turn it off.
Or those apps. People mention things like Alarmy or Core Alarm apps that make you do something before they shut off, like scan a barcode in another room or take a picture of your sink.
Forcing you out of bed. Ingenious. Another really good point from Reddit was having a compelling reason to get up, something you actually look forward to.
Like that quiet cup of coffee, or time to read.
Exactly. Having a positive motivation makes dragging yourself out of a warm bed much easier than just feeling obligated. And also the idea of shifting your wake time gradually 15 minutes earlier each few days, not a sudden jolt.
Those are great user-tested tips. The sources also briefly mentioned other things like maintaining a healthy weight being helpful.
Right, the Sleep Foundation noted that. Some Reddit users talked about specific diets, like keto, though the main sources didn't dive deep into diet beyond avoiding those heavy meals.
And importantly, acknowledging underlying issues, like if you suspect sleep apnea, which some Reddit users mentioned, you need to see a doctor. Habit changes won't fix everything.
Absolutely critical. And it was also interesting that some common worries like sleeping with pets or waking up briefly during the night or even sleeping in a bit on weekends, these were not rated as highly false by the experts.
Suggesting there's more nuance there. Or maybe the harm isn't universal.
Exactly. It might be less impactful overall or very individual, which just brings us back to how complex sleep really is.
Okay, so if we boil all this down, drawing from all these sources,
Yeah.
what are the absolute key takeaways for someone listening who wants to sleep better, maybe starting tonight?
Number one, nail the foundation. Consistent sleep and wake times. Train that body clock, even on weekends if you can.
Okay, consistency.
Number two, build that pre-sleep routine, 30, 60 minutes. Be really mindful of the don'ts, especially screens, bright lights, heavy food, alcohol. Cut those out or way back.
Avoid the disruptors.
And consciously add the do's, relaxing things that work for you. Reading, maybe that quick to-do list journal, calming audio, maybe try the body scan meditation. Signal to your brain that sleep is coming.
Find your calm down activities. And understand those myths, right? Don't stay in bed frustrated. Don't think you can train yourself to need less sleep.
Exactly. Bust those myths. And remember Dr. Rosen's advice. Start small with habit changes. Forgive yourself for slip-ups. It's a process. As all the sources suggest, it takes some trial and error and building that consistency over time.
It really sounds like a journey, not a quick fix. Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, given that the science is still evolving, like the Cleveland Clinic mentioned, and even the experts in that myth study didn't always have unanimous ratings, what does all this complexity tell us? Maybe about how personal sleep really is.
That's a great point. It suggests that perhaps the most important technique of all is approaching your own sleep with curiosity. Experimenting. Paying attention to what uniquely helps your body and your mind find rest, because it might not be exactly the same formula as someone else's.
Find your personal sleep recipe, something to definitely think about. Thanks for joining us for this
If
deep
you
dive into
enjoyed
better
this
sleep.
podcast, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any episode. Your support means the world to us.